Hello everyone, my name's Danielle from Cageless Readings. So today's pick a card reading, we are going to be doing another past life one. Really just because I've been feeling like doing this. I went on a trip to Quebec and I felt so called to Egypt and the Indigenous culture, which I don't really know how those two tie together really. Maybe we'll find out in this card reading. We never know. But anyways, yeah, so I'm just getting around to doing it now. And it is going to be very similar to the Empowered Past Life that I did that ended up being very beginning of human species era. It was actually really interesting, I found as a reader, just to get that information. So if you're someone who maybe not necessarily drawn to any of the piles, but you just find it kind of interesting, the Empowered Past Life reading that I did 2 weeks before this one, I think it would have been, yeah, it just was really cool. So now I'm going to do an Indigenous one, and I don't know where all of you are coming from around the world. So in Canada and America, there was Aboriginal people. There's tons and tons of just murder and maltreatment and destruction of their culture. And it's crazy because in a lot of their teachings, there is a lot of spiritual teachings. So, like a lot of things that I find the spiritual community practices today can be found in their teachings, their original teachings. So, anyways, I always find it as like a really wise and interesting reading. Or, sorry, I think it's going to be a really wise and interesting reading, just because you do have so much respect for that culture. Yeah, and it always does seem a little bit sad that so much of it got lost because of human egos and needs to conquer and kill and all that stuff. So, anyways, that's not the focus of the reading. The focus is to see see what past life you had as an Indigenous person or Aboriginal person. It doesn't have to be in the Americas. It could be anywhere in the world. It could be in Australia. It could be in the Latino countries. Like I'm open to be in like Europe and stuff. I feel like it was so long ago that changed that I've never really heard about Indigenous people in Europe. So I don't know much about that. Anyways, I keep saying a lot today. There we go. I did it again. It's been a weird day. I'm excited to do this reading. So yeah, I don't know. It might be really interesting. Once again, if you're not feeling drawn to piles, sometimes it's interesting to hear some of the things that come through. And I am going to use a different deck for each pile. And the intention is to find out what was in a past life that was Indigenous where you were a leader. And I'm just trying to get information around what you taught, basically why you were leading the people, and just a little bit more about who you were and what your upbringing was in that life. Yeah, so I don't know how long it will be or how short it will be, but I'm just going to go with it. And I will put another top card for you to choose from if you don't want to just choose by the back of the Oracle card deck. But first, I am going to just clear the energy really quick with that crystal pyramid. And then we'll look at your pile options. All right. Okay, so I did pull some top cards here to show you all. So for pile one, we're going to be using the deck, the Oracle of the Medicine Woman. Sorry, it's a little dark, but I actually felt like that would be like a good vibe for this card reading was a little bit of a darker room. And then the top card here we have aspirations. And if you're having a hard time seeing it, I am going to take a picture with the lights on and then I'll put it at the end so you can just hop to that section if you want to see them with the lights on them. Okay, and then pile 2, we have the Angels and Ancestors Oracle card by Kyle Gray. Kind of a popular deck. Probably seen it before somewhere on YouTube. And then your top card is this Friendship. And it says the Latin word, which it says Frisia green-veined charaxis. Yeah. However you say that. Okay. And then pile 3, your deck is the Energy Spirit Oracle. Energy Spirit Oracle. I have used this in quite a few of my card readings, so you've probably also seen this deck before if you've seen a lot of my videos. And then your top card is Love, and it says Lilac Veined J. Yeah, Veined J. And yeah, once again, I will just have a picture of them in the light so it's easier to see them. Okay, so I'll give you a few minutes now to choose your pile, and then I'll see you all in your card readings. Okay, pile 1, so you all chose the Aspirations card. And it says Mountain Pink, large Grange Sulfur is the name of the flower, I believe, or the dragon. One or the other. And then I did pull your cards for this pile just now, and we have here Healing Family Lines. And then it says, free yourself from secrets, hidden treasures of your inheritance. Okay, and then we have the Path of Beauty, looks like a butterfly. And it says, walking your path of beauty elevates your feminine soul. We also have Bear Totem, retire into your den to find answers. And we have Spirit of Water, Divine Sensuality, The Wild Feminine. Interesting. I don't know why I feel like there's a lot of feminine reference already, but I'm just looking and I think no, it does say feminine soul. I'm like, okay, did I just assume that? But no, it does actually say feminine several times now. Okay. And then we have, I really just asked for like, what were you here to lead? Or what were you teaching people as you were leading them? And it says, let your life be transformed. Don't make assumptions. You have another don't make assumptions card, and it says, learn to ask questions. And then here it says, always do your best. Take action without expecting a reward. It's interesting. It kind of looks like there's like a little Mayan temple in the background of this card. It's kind of blurry. And then also you just have Oak, be strong but gentle, control and discern ancient teachings. Super neat. Okay. So already the very first thing I want to even just mention here is when I read like learn to ask more questions and take action without expecting a reward. I feel like from the very little shamanic courses I've done, I've heard so many references to that being such a big teaching for, I don't want to say all groups because I only know of the ones that are more local to my area that mentioned that they always would say, um, like that you don't know anything and anything is like real impossible. Um, and there's just like some stories around teaching people that and how a lot of people can't see what they've like they can't comprehend what they've never seen. So they would talk about how a shaman would have to describe to them in words they knew something he could see because he didn't assume anything was one way or not. I don't know. I'm really not doing the story justice, but it was all about it's like a fable, I guess, or maybe it was a real story about how a shaman described what the English boats looked like, or was it the Spanish boats? I can't remember what it was in the story it referenced. Coming closer and closer in these massive, massive sail ships that they had never seen. That at first they couldn't see it, they couldn't comprehend it because they'd never seen it, and then I guess they got their shaman, and he explained to them what he was seeing coming on the water because he was the one who um, lived dream and not in dream in one reality. I don't know. I feel like I'm not explaining that very clearly. But when I heard the story, I was like, oh, that just makes so much sense because I feel like sometimes people just can't see some things, like even concepts, right? Or things in people. It's so crazy to some of us, but it's like if they've never seen it or never heard of it, they literally just, it's like they're blind to it. So that's what I really learned from that story. And it was explained in a much better way. So anyways, I'm right away thinking of that. And funny enough, it is also a swan on water causing ripples, which the story talked about is how people noticed the ripples in the water but didn't understand what was happening. If there was a storm coming, like what was going on. So yeah. Otherwise, I think I might just take a second to just tune into everything. I feel like I'm getting little bits of things, but I'm not getting like the big story. So I'm going to take a second to see what that is. Okay, sorry about that. I did that thing where I was talking for a while and then I looked up and my camera had died and it didn't record anything. So let's restart. So what I had been saying, oh, I don't think you heard anything. Okay, so yeah, let's just start from the beginning. So I was saying that tuning into this, I do actually feel like this was a past life where I keep getting that you were the wife of a chief or the mother. So like considered, it's like they're saying you were the grandmother of the tribe. And so I feel like the chief got sick or died. Something I feel like happened to this person. So some of you, I'm trying to ask, I don't feel like any of you were in power like as females because of like the transition time. Like I do know there was a period where some indigenous groups had female leaders, or the medicine women were well listened to or well sought after for advice, but I feel like this is in a different era. So I feel like this is the very start of 1600s. I keep getting like 1601. I'm pretty sure it was along the coast of the Americas, so that would have been Canada or the US at the time. And I do think it could have been Quebec, Hudson's Bay, whatever is kind of near Quebec. I don't think New York, but I'm like keep thinking near New York, funny enough. And I don't know the indigenous history of the US, unfortunately. Not really, we weren't really taught that back in my grade school days. But I also do think some of these were tribes near Virginia. In any case, they're showing me there were always places where it was near kind of the oceans or a river, near a body of water, and it was quite the prime place to be living, is from what I can see. And I think that's even where this sort of these issues happened, is like I see that there was a lot of fighting with the settlers, because it had gotten to that point where they had come, your people had taught them how to farm, how to grow, how to survive the winters in these countries, or just like the weird weather patterns that they weren't used to. And I do think these are French and English people. I don't think there is any Spanish people. They do feel more French English. So that's just what I'm getting for the general energy. And anyways, lots of people died. This feels like at the point where you, as they keep saying grandmother of the tribe, stepped in to be like, teach the people to be more discerning, but also to remind them of who they were, because I just do see, and rightly so, there was so much anger towards these settlers for betrayal, for like just bringing in this aggressor. Like, it's just so interesting. It's almost like they saw these settlers as kind of like these helpless children who didn't know how to like survive, and took pity on them and showed them their ways. And it's so funny, it's like they keep saying they were like children, and then there were like children who then took and kicked them out and caused sickness. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it. It felt very betrayed and just angry when it all feels very justified. So this grandmother, this version of you, comes in, and it's like, it's all about the feminine. It's like healing family lines. It's so crazy to think like back in that date, like that's like so long ago for us now. But it was like just saying how already there was some lineages that were affected by this wound, and they kept saying like betrayal of trust. So that is, I think, is the wound that, sorry, it's betrayal of trust, which also was like the fear of being vulnerable and almost compassionate towards others that weren't part of the group, because they caused so much harm and damage. And really, these people were very friendly. Interesting. So when I see what you taught your tribe, and it's not the settlers, it was literally just you trying to help heal the tribe and remind them of who they were and teach them discernment at the same time. So when I see learn to ask more questions, I see this as, it's interesting. It's like I see it first fueled by the anger of when, say, like these, I want to say English people or these white people came and were like, all right, we want to make a trade with you. And then I feel like there's anger flare up, like this, like, why should we give you anything or give you any help or do anything for you? And then I almost feel like your energy comes in and was saying, well, ask more questions. Like, does it serve you? Like, what they're trying to offer you, does it serve you? Do you want it? Does it, like, is it valuable? Like, it's almost teaching people like the value of their work and themselves for the item that these people were trying to exchange with the group. And I feel like asking more questions to get to the root of the intention, because I think that's what happened, is like they actually just would sneak some things, and like they would agree to something, but then they would be like, oh, well, we never said blank. We never said till when. And it's almost like there was always like these loopholes. And I hate to say it, but it's almost like people were very manipulative with the word choice they used. So it's almost like, how do I put it? It's like the English did value their word at that point, but they were just very manipulative on how they gave their word. And so these people would trust that the word was still, powerful, and that was like good enough of a deal. And then I think they learned real quick that there was almost like a lack of honor or respect in these exchanges. So I really feel like your era was teaching the people to come back to their heart center, coming back to their foundation. Sorry, they really feel like root. It's like so much healing. Yeah, it's so crazy because I can't get over that there's this much healing to do just back then, like little on now. So I don't know, I feel a little mind blown by that. Like even seeing like coming back to ancient teachings, being strong but gentle. So being firm with their boundaries and not being pushed over, but still not being as these settlers were towards them. I feel like ruthless, betraying, dishonest, manipulative, which felt the same to them, dishonest and manipulation. It was just something that was not cool. That was not cool at all. And control and discern, yeah, big thing. Discerning what was in their highest good and what wasn't, and when they were being manipulated and when they were not. So it's so interesting because even when it said let your life be transformed, I see this almost as saying like sometimes there was things that did help them out. So I can't think of an example right now. What would that have been? Okay, I'm thinking of like cast iron pots. I don't know if that was actually a thing, but I feel like that's like an example. Like I'm seeing like a cast iron thing, something of metal that lasted a really long time and it was more convenient. And I do think iron, they keep saying that like iron made items. I don't know my history super good, so maybe that would even help figure out dates if like maybe iron was really popular in a certain era. I do feel like that's what I'm seeing her saying, like that's okay, like that's gonna serve us, that's easier. It's just that like then the trade is worth it. So that's just really interesting. Versus like I feel like there's other times where like it's funny because I guess it's you, but like this the grandmother spirit's showing me like say like 40 beaver pelts for like I don't know, like I don't know, for example, say like a tobacco pipe. Like I don't think that trade actually happened, but they're just saying like there were some ridiculous things like that. Whereas like they were taking those trades because they felt backed into a corner, and it's like this grandmother chief really came in and was like, no, 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 no. We are not going to take that deal, and that is ridiculous. And it's okay to say no and be strong on our no. And then eventually, I feel like these settlers came back and were more fair in their bargaining prices and stuff. Um, yeah, it's interesting. It's like these settlers had like that. I don't want to say capitalist. What is that called? Where it's like you realize that you've got what someone wants, so then you keep escalating the price, and then you basically are the only one giving it to them. So then eventually they feel like they have to pay it, and that's what they were doing. And then this grandmother version of you in this past life was like, you know what? We don't need it. We didn't need it before you came here, so we're gonna be just fine. And then they realized, oh, we're not getting these beaver felts, is that what they're called? These beaver pelts, there we go. That we're really, really wanting. I do think it was beaver and raccoon. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like they were all for hats. Maybe foxes. Maybe that's what it is, foxes. Yeah, I don't know. But anyways, they were just asking for some ridiculous standards, and they'd come back and lower the price to a more reasonable thing when you taught people to stand up for themselves. Walking your path of beauty elevates your feminine soul. Retire into your den to find answers. So it's so interesting. It's almost like she was just, I keep saying that, like teaching the people to come back to that mindfulness place, to that place of like taking a second to breathe and ask who they want to be. Because I get that, like, I know there was, people say this like all the time, like a lot of Indigenous groups were very violent towards each other. And I know that can happen, but I feel like here, it's like, I don't know if you could feel into this energy. It's like, I feel like they tried to be very peaceful and kind as much as they could. But that being said, like they do say like they were like a pack not to intimidate. And it's so interesting. You were just so loved and protected by this group. And I really even think that's why I'm getting a stronger grandmother energy, because it's almost like they're saying like they valued your wisdom and your experience so much that you were just so well protected by your tribe and were well respected. Wild feminine. Awaken your she-wolf instincts, that primordial force. I really like that word, primordial force. Yeah, I'm trying to see if there's anything else to share about this. I kind of feel like that's all they're really giving me. It's just more of an interesting life, teaching people to come back to themselves, and not getting caught up in the ways of the settlers and turning into them. Like this, I think, was really like the grandmother coming in and being like, no, because someone's acting that way, we're not going to stoop to their level. So it's just very wise. It was a very, very wise life. And the other thing I want to mention too is these little plants here. They are from the the western parts of the Americas. So that's interesting too. But that came out on their card. So I wonder even if that's what's making me think this is Canada or America. Yeah, and then let's see, what does this card say over here? Spirit of water, return to the source of the feminine for purification. Yeah, so really just so much about coming back to who they are. And I really feel like releasing any of the energies or the lessons they picked up from the settlers so that they did not accidentally find themselves turning into them. And I also maybe will just read the backs of these cards too. So it says, when you stop making assumptions, your word becomes impeccable and your life is completely transformed. Magic just happens in your life. What you need comes to you easily because spirit moves freely through you. The little butterflies, and then this one where it says, learn to ask questions. It says, it is always better to ask questions than to make assumptions. Have the courage to ask questions until you are as clear as you can be. Once you hear the answer to a question, you won't have to make assumptions because you will know the truth. Very interesting. I definitely feel like every time I tune into this card, I just feel like I see interactions between like 2 or 3 settlers, and they're kind of like trying to be clever, and then I feel like I see like this group of people being like, well, and like asking another question and then them answering another question until eventually they kind of get them down to it, and then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, now we see what you're really up to. So here it says, do your best and take the action because you love it, not because you expect a reward. When you take action without expecting a reward, you enjoy every action, and you can even receive greater reward than you imagined. And this card really made me feel like this is like what your group of people did for them. You didn't I guess you didn't feel like you had expected anything from them, but you did expect them to be fair and respectful and kind. And unfortunately, they weren't that to your people. And it's almost like just like the maturity of these settlers was like they almost felt like these people were too gullible or very gullible and easily manipulated. So they're almost like, oh, awesome, this is going to be easy. And it's just such a like gross energy. Yeah, such a gross energy that some of them had. Okay, I know that one was short, but that's actually all I have for you. Maybe we'll just clear the energy with the intention of grounding you back down and let you go on your way. All right, pile two. I just pulled some cards for you. So you chose the friendship card with green veined Shirax. You couldn't quite pronounce. And then we have Medicine Guardian, the open to healing information. We have Medicine Mother. Wow. Sensing a theme in this life. Something around medicine, that's for sure. We have Sun, enjoy success and happiness. We have White Witch, be the light. We have Earth Guardian. We have Spirit Box. And we have Spouse, Asia. It's kind of interesting. And we have be aware of unconscious assumptions and embrace your freedom and manifest your true intentions. That's kind of what I pulled for. What did you lead through? Sorry, what did you teach through your leading? I keep saying that phrase backwards. I don't know why. I guess I just want to say it backwards. Another Mayan temple in this card, which is interesting because the last one I did not feel like it was actually located in any way in Mexico or South America. It all felt more northern. Yeah, I might just take a second to tune into all of your cards and see what's going on. I feel like these lives are way different. Like, I feel like for my last past card, or maybe it's also just a weird day, I keep speaking backwards. Like literally keep putting the end word first in the sentence, and I don't know, I'm doing that more in this pile than I was any other time. But anyways, I do feel like for my other past life reading I did recently that had kind of Egypt vibes and it was about empowered past life, they spoke very clearly about waves of people who came in at the very, very start of the human race and kind of like who taught us mindfulness. And I almost feel like for these past lives, they're saying like this wasn't a wave of people. These are just sort of a handful of you having a past life that was similar to each other, but this wasn't like a huge agreed upon planetary mission like the other one was. So I feel like this is why it's so hard to get very specific details or really much details. I find that's the case in general card readings, like a past life where I'm trying to get very specific, but I can't because there's too many people watching and you all have tiny little different specific details. So I don't get anything at all. It's like a blank. So anyways, I'm going to take a second to tune in a little bit deeper and just see if I can get the most information I can. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting past life. And it does seem a little specific. So I don't know how many people would have chose this pile. It doesn't seem that long ago in the sense that it seems like it was in either the later 1800s or the early 1900s. I'm not really totally sure. I think it might have been the 1800s. I don't know actually. I feel like there's a lot of like, I'm seeing a lot of things that I didn't think would have existed in the 1800s. So this is where I'm like, I just don't know my history that well on dates of things happening in what era. But I do feel like in this past life, you all came from like a very forested, tropical forest looking place. There's a lot of humidity there. You did come from like a tribe of people, and I think this tribe was not really found or heard of until much later in history. So like that's why I think like you came out of your tribe because I think you had seen some of these people, these like I don't know, I guess you'd say like these odd looking people really is how I would have seen it. And I think from what I can see here, like when I see White Witch, I actually just see like you were, don't know what I would call you. Like, I feel like you were a shaman of the group. Like, I think there was more than one. That's the first thing I want to say, because as soon as I ask if you were like the main one, they're like, no, that person wouldn't have left the group alone. There was like trainees, assistants. So I feel like you were still pretty experienced, but you weren't just like the head shaman or medicine person, because they would have stayed behind. And I also get the impression that they were a little bit too old. Um, and it's interesting that they have an awareness of sickness and diseases, that people would get ill around these, being around people they just had never had contact with. So yeah, I don't know. I find that really neat. Very wise. So, anyways, it's almost like they sent you, and I do see your spouse. So I feel like it was you and your couple. And also, when I see this, I do see a couple again. And it's very clear that I feel like the woman, once again, kind of had all the teachings in this tribe. I don't know why. I feel like I always get that. So I'm always like, is that right? Can they really, how is it that women are always getting the empowered things here? But I don't know. It just seems to be the theme I get. Maybe my bias is always filtering that too. Who knows? But anyways, because even there is a lot of men in these cards, but I still see it as the female. I guess it's because I like see the female coming in with the knowledge, and they sent the spouse, like the male partner, as her protector. And I do feel like you traveled. So I know this says Asia, but I'm like, I'm not really paying too much mind to that, because I don't know if that's where you actually came from, or if you actually came from parts of Africa. I really don't know, but I do just see that it was interesting. It was like a very interesting life for you. Like, it was a little bit exciting. Like, I see success and joy, and it was just like you and your partner going out into the world, and like just all this wonder and awe. And I do feel like you were bringing in teachings of your tribe, like, and people are really fascinated by you. They're really fascinated by your tribe that had, by all intents and purposes, like not been heard of. And they kind of thought they knew everyone, so it was like shocking that they didn't know that your group was living in this tropical forest. And it's similar to paganism. I feel like is like what your tribe practice. It isn't paganism though. It's similar. Like, you believed in following like the laws of nature and energy, and like communicating with it. And I do feel like there was like a type of plant medicine you used in your tribe. um and I think that's even what people were intrigued by, and just like, I don't know, it's interesting. Like, I keep getting like people were so interested. um Professors, I think, were really interested to hear what you had to say, which also is very shocking to me, because I'm like looking at the era it's saying, and I'm like, well, no offense, but I get the impression that you were of darker skin in this life, and I feel like you were interacting with Europeans. Not always in Europe, but like I feel like there was so many colonies going on and stuff then, that you could have been like in Africa, like I was saying, but you just would have been in like French colonies or English colonies, and like explaining things to them. And I just like, I feel like there's so much wisdom in this. Sorry, I just had an alarm going off there. But yeah, I feel like there's so much wisdom, and I do feel like you learned to speak European languages. I do feel like that, once again in this lifetime. I feel like I know the Spanish colonized people too, like really aggressively, but I do feel like you were interacting not with the Spanish but with French or English, because I keep getting, no, you learned. I think a lot of you learned French if you came from Africa, and if you came from kind of Eastern Asia, I think you learned English. But that makes sense. I mean, India and all that was colonized by English, so yeah, I don't know. That makes sense to me. But anyways, yeah, it's just so interesting. Like, I feel like you actually really got to live a very interesting life, and partnership was so important to you. Like, it just tells me the bond between the two of you was so strong, and was almost a comfort, to have left everything familiar but to still have each other, and just, yeah, just like helped each other grounded. So I'm like, why is this coming up for leadership? And I think it was like you were, maybe even next up for like this role in your community, but it was like you had just such a unique way of thinking, and you're very adaptable in the way you thought, that that they just agreed you were the best one to send. And it was a really interesting life. So be aware of your unconscious assumptions and manifest your true intentions. Like, this is what came up for what you taught people, and obviously embrace your freedom, which I really just see that as like embrace your travel, embrace the unknown. I feel like that was like a really big thing that you taught, but you also brought in like this. I keep seeing, like, I think people asked you about plant medicine, literally, like whether it was like ones that took you on like a bit of a drug or the ones that like healed wounds and stuff, because I think it just blew their minds that you had so much medicine teachings and healing teachings that worked, and remedies that worked, um, that they just didn't quite seem to have. So I don't know, I feel like you just had a really lucky life. Like, it really could have gone both ways back then. I keep thinking that. Like, I feel like there would have been some people who still would have, like, they're just so still in colonization. So I just think I'm just blown away that you had, I feel like, so much respect by certain people. And I feel like you were well protected by them as well. There was like a fascination, just such a fascination around you in this life. And you had such a fascination for life too. So it says, you gain a huge amount of freedom when you take nothing personally. No spell can affect you regardless of how strong it may be. And if you live without fear, if you love, you will be happy with your life. So it's so interesting. There is 2 cards talking about happiness. So I feel like that was just also such a big theme for you in this lifetime, was happiness, and maybe even through being happy, teaching others around you to be happy. Because although, like, I do feel like the leadership part was towards these, what would have been for you foreigners, like these French or English people who, I guess I almost get like they didn't totally always know what to do with themselves. Like, they were, I don't know, I feel like they were always told to like conquer or take over something, keep expanding their countries, but then after that they're like, now what? I guess we go do it again. Like, I don't know, there was a bit of like a emptiness to their purpose, right? Like, there was no deeper emotion going on there from what I can see. And then we have, regardless of what language you speak, your intention will manifest through the word. What you dream, what you feel, and what you really are will be manifest through the word. It's really interesting. It talks about language. And like I was saying, I'm pretty sure that you would have been quite smart in this lifetime to have just picked up a language you'd never learned. And then here it says, assumptions are made so fast and unconsciously most of the time because we have agreements to communicate this way. We have agreed that it is not safe to ask questions. We have agreed that if people love us, they should know what we want or how we feel. It's really interesting. So it's kind of fun to be like, I think you just taught so many things. I think you taught to these, like, I keep saying professors. I really feel like there is like professors, professors, doctors, that like, how can you exist? How can you be happy? How can you not be just like, I feel like they keep saying so shocked that maybe that you seemed more fulfilled and more happy and loving in your relationship than anything they had seen. It was inspirational. I think that's the word I'm looking for. Like, you led them through inspiration, but you also just had so much knowledge. And I almost wonder if you taught people about mental health in an era where it wasn't that common to teach people the importance of mental health. And I don't think they would have even have called it back then mental health. I just think they would have been like depression, and maybe they would have been prescribing a lot of, what was that? Oh, there's some drug that's like, it was super common. I know this. Was it morphine back then? I don't know. I think there's something else. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But I feel like a lot of people, like, I can see like doctors prescribing stuff like that. Like, oh, like, if you're not happy, then just take some of this drug that we created before they realized it was like super addictive and it didn't do anything other than like deter your numbness. So I don't know. That's what I keep getting. I don't know if I have anything else for this pile. I think that's it. yeah, like I was kind of saying, it's tricky to get a lot of information for general card readings, I find, in this, because um, the specific details are so different for everyone. So I'll just end this with a little sound clearing to ground you all back, maybe offer a little bit of clearing to this past life if it needs any, but it actually feels pretty joyful. And I'm even just so surprised. I don't even feel like there was like a deep sadness about leaving the people. I just feel like you were so ready for it. Like you just always knew somewhere deep down that you weren't going to always be in that tribe or in that group. There was new experiences out there for you. All right, I'm going to do a little clearing now. Okay, pile three. So I just pulled some cards for you, and we're going to look at them together. So we'll put your card there. And what we have here, we have emotional healing. We have marriage. Interesting. Two cards came up with spouses in it. Flower power and dietary change. That's interesting. And this girl's eating some eggs in that flower power. Oh no, no, they look like eggs. Weird. Okay. And then we have wisdom of the magi, mental clarity. You have your internal spirit, higher self, secret intuition. We have thought vibrations, resonate choices, signature signals. We have letting go of urgency. Wow, connection and ascended masters. It's so interesting because this is supposed to be an Indigenous past life. But I keep wondering if you were like a monk. like, yeah, like a Tibetan kind of monk. I think that's what I'm seeing. Yeah, ascended masters. Yeah, I don't know. If it wasn't a Tibetan monk, then it was like some other culture that has very similar um, philosophies as that. Like, even like so funny, the dietary change. Like, I just kept thinking about not eating meat. That was what that was what you taught and did. Um, emotional healing. The spend time with flowers and flower essences to increase your personal healing power. It's so funny. It makes me think about how a lot of people talk about using flower essences for animal health and curing a lot of issues with dogs and cats. I don't know. That's like the first thing that comes to my mind. And I am a little stumped on the marriage thing. The fairies join you in celebrating wedding bliss. Because I don't have the impression that you got married in this life. I feel like you were teaching people mindfulness, the laws of the universe. So kind of like law of attraction, law of cause and effect, karma, the law of, let's see, there's something else I'm forgetting. Like the thought vibrations. Like, I think you're literally teaching people how frequencies work and how to tune into certain frequencies and hop onto a frequency that you want to experience. And definitely when I see letting go of the urgency, like 100%, I feel like it's like getting out of that, just living in a routine that is like a kind of a vicious cycle where you get up, you go to work, you hustle, you make your money, you go home, you drink your, I want to say port. I don't know if you're actually drinking port, but I think that was kind of more the common thing back then. Is like you drink your port and you stay up late, maybe play some cards, some gambling, some dice, and then you would do it all over again. And I feel like you taught people to let go of that, sort of just like societal norms is how I'm seeing it. Societal pressures of like just going around in circles. Connection, partnership, contract, commitments. This is interesting. So the fact that marriage came up twice, I don't know. It almost seems like you were teaching people how to have, I would say, more committing connections in their marriages and in their partnerships. So maybe teaching people maybe not to just like wed out of family lineage, family arranged marriages, and maybe choosing, or even if they did it through family arranged marriages, finding connection through it. But it just says like healing, I feel like healing the paradigm of what relationships were. An ascended master, I just truly see this as being like that was kind of the wisdom you carry, and it makes so much sense with what I'm seeing here. Sorry, my cat Charlie is meowing outside the door because he's like, it's late and you're in the room that I'm not allowed in, and I don't understand why I'm not. So he's a little upset. But such a cool life from what I can see. It's not giving me like deep detail. I keep saying that in these piles. It's because I keep getting like this wasn't a wave of people, so I'm getting less details because it's kind of like a general card reading where each detail would have been different for all of you watching, and they're just sticking with more general information to just have it applied to the most of you as accurately as I can to a general card reading. So interesting. So the big theme for this pile was love, and I feel like that's really kind of going with it, with the emotional healing, with this connections and relationships, and I feel like respect. Oh, it's so interesting. I almost wonder too, like I keep seeing I want to say like the word posh, some posh people in their like, their poofy dresses with the like fake hips and the fake bum patches or cushions. And then I feel like I see the men who like usually have affairs with mistresses but don't actually have much of a relationship with their wives. I feel like this for you kind of came in during that era. And it is interesting because I'm like, where were you like located? Because I feel like with who you were, you should have been kind of like in nature, in a more rural area. But then I'm like, no, but then I think you went to the people to teach them connection, and like I was saying, all this like mindfulness practice and these laws of attraction, law of abundance, law of all this stuff. Interesting. So it's funny. I do see that you were teaching people who were more local in these small communities, or I should say small towns around you. But I do keep seeing, I think it was Englishmen, coming and learning from you. But why you would have been? I'm so curious. I'm like, why and how are you interacting with these people? Why would they be coming to your country back then? Yeah, I don't know. I almost get the impression wherever you were, I think was close to India or Indonesia. Maybe it's that. Oh, maybe I'm messing up. Maybe it's Indonesia. I don't know, but whatever it is, it's like I think there was like a colony, an English colony nearby, like not that nearby for like how travel worked back then, but like just enough that it was like rumored um about you and your people. And it was almost like an interesting thing to go and see. And it's one of those things where once they go and see you, if they pique their curiosity, then they actually felt so inspired to learn from you, learn mindfulness from you. It was mostly men that came to you, and I do actually think that in this life, these if you chose this pile, you were a man. Yeah, it does feel very masculine. And I do just keep seeing very like Tibetan Buddhist looking people. Yeah. I don't know if you shaved your head though. Like it's so interesting because I can't tell if you shaved your head or if you're just balding. Like you have the cul-de-sac going on. Yeah, interesting. And you were a little bit darker of skin. And funny enough, I just see that you kind of had like misaligned teeth, but you were always smiling. And when you smiled, you like squinted your eyes a lot. I just keep seeing that image again and again for this pile of representation of your energy. And they're always laughing. That's so interesting. It's like this person was happy and lighthearted. And I think that was even the thing that was so fascinating to these like, more proper people, these posh people I keep saying, because it was like, I just don't think people were that genuinely happy in their country during this time. I think there's probably a lot of civil unrest too during this era, where like their country was always fighting someone or they were being like infiltrated by somebody else. Sorry, I was just finding myself. Was this during Napoleon? And I don't think so. I think it was pre-Napoleon, but I don't totally know. I feel like there wasn't quite that amount of chaos and threat from the French at that point, but there was just like general unrest because I was like, you wouldn't have traveled it, or sorry, I keep getting it's like people wouldn't have traveled to you if it was very dangerous for them. So it was kind of more during a time of I don't know, I don't want to say peace because they weren't really at peace with anything, but they just weren't in straight up war. So that feels a little bit different. So it's just, yeah, it's really interesting life, I feel. And I almost wonder if, like when I see this ascended master, I wonder if you would even, like, if you chose this file, I feel like you carry that wisdom in you now. Like you have this, kind of feels like spirit guide, like energy to you. So that's really cool. Really cool to see. And I also feel like there's all these lessons that you learned, and maybe even in this life, I think this would be influencing you still, where you would feel, like, say if you lived in New York, I think it would be against your way of life. Like it's just like on a soul level, I feel like that urgency that New York has about people just basically speed walking everywhere, it just goes against your true soul wisdom. And maybe you do live there to help influence that, but I feel like it would make you kind of sick over time, or like it just wouldn't be a great place for you to be. And I feel like if your health ever was like bad, it would be good to move somewhere quite literally slower paced, because of that. But not, I don't think, maybe some farming towns, but I'm like, not prairie. I don't know. I don't feel like the prairie seems so far away from like the energies you like. I think you like being around trees and mountains, not prairies as much. But anyways, we're getting too specific again. These have been quite short, but I think, like I was saying, it's just because I don't have a lot of detail to share. So hopefully that was just kind of interesting enough for you. I guess I could explain a little bit more about the laws of attractions and the manifestations and abundance, but I kind of feel like that might be another picker card video. Yeah, and I do feel like if you chose this pile, you probably already have like a pull towards it or an inkling towards it, and I believe you probably believe that your thoughts create your reality, and hopping timelines based off of what frequency you're vibrating at or what frequencies around you. I feel like that's who you are in this life too. Okay. All right, I'm gonna clear the energy, just the ground, maybe clear any energy that might need been cleared in this past life, and then I'll let you all go already. Just a quick little simple card reading this time.